Alright, what's going on YouTube? Today we're going to take a look at masteries in Season 7 for ADCs. Now a lot of you guys have been asking for this video for quite a while, but I haven't gone around doing it because I felt like I needed some time to test out which masteries were good and which ones were trash, whatnot, and actually I found out some pretty cool stuff about the masteries. So without further ado, do not make this video too long, let's just jump right into the masteries. So our first choice is going to be which tree do we want to center on. Now since we're playing ADC, we obviously want offensive stats mostly throughout the entire game. So Ferocity is definitely the stat that we're going to focus on mainly, and then between Cunning and Resolve. If you take a look at Resolve, there's a lot of stuff in Resolve that actually gets solvented, I found out, by taking defensive masteries that we can naturally find in the Ferocity tree. So Resolve, most of the things that I tried out in Resolve really didn't feel right. Masteries like Veteran Scars doesn't feel quite right. Runic Armor, you might think it's pretty good. At level 5, it's an extra 8% lifesteal. So you might be thinking, well, that's pretty good, but then you have to get to the mid game to actually hit that lifesteal. It's kind of awkward, and like I said, there are some defensive options with Ferocity that we can build into, so that we don't actually need any of the defensive capabilities that the Resolve tree has. So for now, we're just gonna ignore the Resolve tree. I don't think it's worth going into at all for ADC, but I might be wrong, and you guys might correct me down in the comments. We'll see though. So from my personal experience, we're gonna focus on the Ferocity tree, and then we're gonna put 12 points on the Cunning tree. So anyways, here on the first part of the Ferocity tree, we've got Fury and Sorcery. Now obviously we're playing ADC, and most of our damage is going to come from attack speed and the basic attacks, so it's just a natural synergy with the whole archetype to take Fury instead of Sorcery. Now you might think on guys like Corki and whatnot, but I mean, those guys still rely on auto attacks. At the end of the day, they still deal a lot of their damage through the auto attacks. So I think this is a no-brainer. There's no way you pick anything but Fury. Next up, we've got Feast, which killing a unit restores 20 health and 30-second cooldown. Fresh Blood, your first basic attack against the champion deals an additional 10 plus 1 per level damage, which means at level 18 you'll be dealing 28 damage. And then you have Exposed Weakness, which damaging enemy champions causes them to take 3% more damage from all of your allies. Now this is kind of an interesting choice. I think it's the one that has the more validity to choose one or another one. Going Fresh Blood is extremely good in the early game, dealing an additional 11 damage actually on level 1 per auto attack is a really big deal. Unfortunately, it scales really poorly in the late game. Dealing a total of 28 damage in the late game is really not a big deal, like compared to what your items deal as far as damage goes. So this mastery is kind of not that good in my opinion, because as an ADC, your primary objective is always to scale into the late game and deal damage later on. So whatever you can do in the early game to survive through the laning phase or get a CS lead on your opponent is always going to be beneficial. Now, some of you might say, well, I just like to win lane, and if I win lane, win game, right? And yeah, that's true. So you might as well just take Fresh Blood. It's a perfectly valid response. But me personally, as far as my playstyle goes, I usually take ADCs that scale pretty well into the late game. So I think this mastery is no good for that, and therefore I don't like using it. But it's perfectly valid. Feast is my mastery of choice because it allows me to get through the lane. And like I said with the Resolve tree, we don't need to take defensive masteries because we're going to take stuff like Feast in this tree. And later on some other stuff. But right now, Feast is our defensive choice. And Exposed Weakness, if you're playing strictly solo queue, I would say this mastery is always wrong. Because you don't know if your team took Exposed Weakness. And like, coordinating that would be kind of complicated, so I think overall Exposed Weakness is a no-no for solo queue. But if you're in a coordinated environment, maybe Exposed Weakness makes a lot of sense. So for now, we're just going to take Feast. Vampirism And on the next tier, we've got Vampirism and Natural Talent. Now, there is quite a bit of controversy between one and the other. Some people say natural talent is just like strictly better than vampirism because later on you're gonna take lifesteal, but I'd say that's not necessarily true. Reason being, most of the ADCs, when they hit the mid game, when they really need that lifesteal, they don't actually get it right away, or they would rather not. For instance, if you're playing Tristana, right? Tristana, you go BF into Runons, into IE, and then if you're really, really, really screwed, you'd rather build some lifesteal to play throughout the lane. But unfortunately, that's not necessarily the optimal DPS build for Tristana. Usually what you want to do is right after you end up with those two items, you want to get a second Zeal item. For a lot more attack speed means a lot more DPS, a lot more crits. And obviously there is no lifesteal item which gives you crit, so currently there's no option for that. So you have to make a trade-off. However, if you take the Vampirism Mastery here, you don't really have to compromise that much lifesteal in order to gain a lot more benefits from your items. So that's the trade-off between natural talent and vampirism. You do gain 2 AD and 3 AP at level 18. Wait, never mind. What am I saying? 10 AD and 15 AP at level 18. I mean, 10 AD is quite a bit, but the real question to ask yourself here is, do you think 10 AD is worth 4% lifesteal? And I haven't done the math, but I'm pretty sure 4% lifesteal is a lot better considering the final build path for ADC. So I think Vampirism is almost strictly better, almost. There is a little bit of tweaking here, but I think almost strictly better than natural talent as far as ADCs go. Now let's take a look at the next tier. We've got Bounty Hunter, 1.5% increased damage for each unique champion you've killed. Then we've got Double-Edged Sword, 5% additional damage and take 2.5% additional. And then we've got Battle Trance, which is 5% increased damage over 5 seconds when in combat with enemy champions. Now, in this tier, it's interesting to notice that these two are pretty much the same thing. Double-Edged Sword and the Battle Trance pretty much do the same thing. The difference is, when do you need the 5% additional damage? If you don't care about ramping up because all you're doing is just DPS in the backline, then Battle Trance is strictly better than Double-Edged Sword. However, if you're playing an ADC like Vayne or Twitch, which really, it's very important to get that initial burst because of their ultimates or because of, I don't know, a shift proc on Vayne or something along the lines of that, then Double-Edged Sword is much better than Battle Trance. So when picking between these two, between Double-Edged Sword and Battle Trance, what you really have to keep in mind is how am I gonna play against the enemy team and whether if I can burst them right away or I would rather have a more safe approach towards team fighting. So that's pretty much the difference between both these masteries. And then on the other hand, you have Bounty Hunter, which is just a piece of shit. You should never take this mastery. You have to kill 3 different champions to be almost as good as Double-Edged Sword. And it's not even there, right? It's 0.5 short of Double-Edged Sword as far as damage goes. So I would never recommend taking Bounty Hunter over any of these two. For now, we're gonna take Battle Trance because it's the safer one. But we'll see. Notice that there's a pattern here, right? Notice that we took the safest one here in Feast, we took the safest one here in Vampirism, and we took the safest one here in Battle Trance. Mostly due to the fact that these masteries are gonna help us out to scale into our items. Like an ADC with full items will just go over anything and everything. So the most important part about ADC in the early to mid game, which is where these masteries are actually going to impact your gameplay, is to make sure that you can survive through that stage to get where you are actually very strong. And let's go over to the next tier. We've got Battering Blows, 1.4% armor penetration, scales up to 7%, and then Magic Penetration, which obviously, since we're dealing mostly attack damage, we will never take. Unless you're playing something like Corki. I haven't actually tried this on Corki, but let me know if you've tried this and we'll see how good it is. I think it's the same amount, 7%. Yeah, so probably it's better probably to take Piercing Thoughts to Corki. I don't know. I haven't tried it out. Just a small tangent there. Anyways, we're gonna take obviously Battering Blows on literally everyone because it's so good. And then we get to the Keystone. Now this is where it gets pretty good. Here, we've got Deathfire Touch, right? Your damaging abilities cause enemy champions to take magic damage over time, so it's a dot, right? Then we've got Fervor of Battle. Hitting champions generates, with basic attacks, generates a Fervor stack, and the stacks of Fervor increase your AD. They've got Warlust Bloodlust, which gives you increasingly more lifesteal based on your missing health. Now, here's what's interesting about the current state of League of Legends. There are a lot of assassins and there are a lot of squishy guys roaming out there. The guys that are extremely big use Courage of the Colossus, which is this keystone right here. It's kind of difficult to beat Courage on DPS alone. You need a lot of CC and help from your allies to actually beat tanks in the current ADC landscape of League. So Fervor of Battle has gone down a lot in interest because DPSing quickly, I don't know if that's actually the way to say it, but killing a target with Fervor is not as good as it used to be. And as it turns out, having this lifesteal is extremely good in lane. If you end up fighting against your opponent in lane, and both of you end at the same amount of HP after you trade blows, whoever has Warless Bloodlust will eventually make it heal himself a lot more than the other guy. So it really is a big deal when it comes down to laning, which is really what we're looking for in these masteries, to have a strong lane, or strong enough to get to the big late game item oriented ADC builds. So currently between these two, I tend to go more towards Warlords because of that reason. Because it's so much better to have a strong laning phase and then scale with items. Scale your damage with items. You don't really need more damage. So as far as like this Keystone Mastery, I would take Warlords for sure. However, it is important to note that Deathfire Touch is, in the case specifically of Jhin, you should always take Deathfire Touch. Much like what I said in the last Masteries video, Deathfire Touch is the way to go on Jhin. But on any other AD, I'd probably go Warlords unless they have a lot of tanks, like, I don't know, 3 out of the 5 enemies are tanks, then you should take Fervor, probably. And even then it's questionable, so I don't know. Anyways, we said we wouldn't go into the Stealth tree, so let's go into the Cunning tree here a little bit and check out what we have. We have Wander, and it's 3% extra move speed out of combat. We don't really need that much. We're always gonna be like CSing and whatnot, and 3% is kind of like a small amount. We're not junglers or supports that need to go around the map warding and stuff. So basically, yeah, this is no good. We'd rather just have an extra 5 bonus damage to minions in order to CS a lot more smoothly throughout the laning phase. Then we have Runic Affinity. Buffs from neutral monsters last 15% longer. We've got Secret Stash, which is your potions and elixirs last 10% longer. And your health potions are replaced with biscuits that restore 15 health and mana instantly on use. And finally, Assassin, which deals 2% increased damage to champions when no allied champions are nearby. In this tier, Runic Affinity is really not good because we're not junglers again. And the moment at which we get a red buff from our jungler is only until like 20 minutes. And then we have like, I don't know, 10 more minutes of game. So this is really not going to impact us that much. We don't really need that. On the other hand, Secret Stash, and here's a little point of contention compared to what I used to run. I used to always run Secret Stash pretty much just because it seemed like it was the de facto go-to kind of mastery to take because the other two were pretty bad. However, on second thought, our potions and elixirs last 10% longer, right? So if a potion gives us 150 HP, that means we're getting 15 more HP because the effect is 10% longer. 150 divided by 10, 15. And then we've got the 15 health and mana. So we got 30 health and 50 mana instantly, and then the potion is normal, right? So is 30 HP and 15 mana worth more than 2% increased damage when no ally champions are nearby? The answer is I don't think so. I think actually Assassin might be a little bit better than Secret Stash. Mostly because because we're running on the Ferocity tree, we took a lot of defensive options. We took the Feast, we took Vampirism, we took Battle Trance, we took Warless Bloodlust, which is a huge defensive boost, by the way. And it seems like with these options that we made in the Ferocity tree, we should definitely go Assassin, because Secret Stash is kind of overkill on defense and healing. But however, if you are running, say, for instance, Fervor and Double-Edged Sword, you might actually consider going over to Secret Stash, because then you can get the healing from that part of the mastery. But for now, this is pretty much the mastery page I've been running for most of my AD builds. And then we've got Meditation and Merciless. Now, Meditation is a mastery I've always hated. The reason for this is because 1.5% of your missing mana is only good if you have a really large mana pool. So this is only going to be good by default on guys that really need to spam a lot of spells. So Lucian, Sivir, Ezreal, Corki, Varus. Varus just got buffed and his attack speed build is a lot better. His attack speed build goes Essence Reaver. So why would you get Meditation when you have Essence Reaver at your disposal? Essence Reaver is so much better. So does Lucian. Lucian also gets Essence Reaver. So does Sivir. And Ezreal builds Tyr. And Tyr gives you a crap ton of mana. So there's this diminishing returns kind of thingy, I don't know, that 1.5 isn't good enough for you to justify buying this only for the earlier stages of the game when you don't have those items. And it's just crap stats. I don't know, it seems too bad to me, and considering the other option is just so much better, right? So Merciless gives you 5% increased damage to any champion below 40%. You add that with Double-Edged Sword or Battle Trance and you get 10% more damage. That is ridiculous, right? So it just seems like Meditation is crap compared to Merciless, and there's no way I would ever take Meditation over Merciless. Going on to the next and final point, we've got Greenfather's Gift. Stepping into a brush causes your next damaging attack or ability to deal 3% of your target's current health as bonus magic damage. And then we got Bandit. That's like the support one. I'm not even gonna read it. Just never take this because you're always CSing. You I don't know. Just don't take this. You're always CSing. You don't actually need the extra gold from auto attacking enemy champions. It's completely unnecessary for AD. And then we got Dangerous Game. Champion kills and assists restore 5% of your missing health and mana. Now, when Greenfathers came out, I was extremely stoked about this mastery. I thought it would be great on ADCs like Caitlyn and Tristana and Kog'Maw that have that long range, on Ashe for instance, and that like to go into the bushes, Caitlyn specifically with her passive boost on bushes. However, the thing is, Greenfathers hits everything, including minions. The issue with including minions is that since you're CSing your way into the lane, it's very awkward to CS properly and have the same window of opportunities to proc Greenfathers on someone. They have to be extremely careless, careless, to let you proc Greenfathers on them. So people will play around you walking into a bush and being in auto attack range and whatnot. So in theory, this mastery could be really, really good for dominating your lane with Fresh Blood. Like, these two have some pretty interesting synergy. However, the fact that you have to step into a bush and it's timed and it could hit minions, that just makes it too inconsistent. I really don't like this mastery at all. I've tested it quite a bit on Caitlyn and I've had so much more success just running a lot of defensive options and then trading blows with your opponent and coming out ahead because you have so much more healing. So yeah, Greenfathers I just really don't like. On the other hand, Dangerous Game is like, it's always good, right? If you get 1 or 2 assists during the fight, you're boosting your HP by 10%. You have pretty much 110% of your HP and mana. and that is actually a pretty big deal. So from these options, I would rather go AD scan. And that's pretty much like the average ADC page. I can't think of anything else you could try. Maybe you could try like a completely different page. I don't know, maybe something cheesy with like Rasputin dying or something like that. I don't even know. Maybe you guys can come up with something fun, and I'll try it out in a video. That could be interesting. Anyways, that'll be about it. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.